everybody, and welcome to the FG3's podcast for another interview. Today, we're with FCF wide receiver and North Dakota University wide receiver, Travis Toivonen.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
So, you grew up in Red Wing, Minnesota, along with two siblings that are also big into sports. Your sister had a career or a college golf career, and your brother had a college tennis career. And you were actually a two-sport athlete playing both basketball and football in your high school. What was it like growing up in a house just filled with athletes?
I mean, that's kind of like what we grew up doing. We just played sports, and that's what we love to do. So ever since I was, younger in the YMCA, I would be playing any sport that I possibly could. So it's kind of just like what was natural for me, and I saw my older siblings do it, so it's what I love to do.
So you were one of the top wide receivers in Minnesota by the time you were by the time you started high school, being named All State and All Area Player of the Year throughout your high school career. You were also named All Area Player of the Year in basketball too during your junior and senior seasons, where you led your team to a state tournament. So, what were some of the driving decisions that you decided to take football over basketball?
Yeah, so I was pretty set on playing basketball in college, and I played AAU basketball. It's kind of like what I wanted to do. I really loved football and basketball, but basketball was kind of like the one sport that I liked maybe just a little bit more than football. I never really got any offers for basketball though, so that played a that played a big factor into it. And for football, the University of North Dakota kept sending me postcards in the mail, basically telling me that they wanted me to come up to a camp. I went up to a camp and did really well, and then they offered me a scholarship. So that was my only scholarship offer in football or basketball, and that was honestly the biggest driving factor for me. And I'm really glad that I took that scholarship and went up there because I loved my time at North Dakota, and obviously football was the right decision for me.
So after high school, of course, you went to North Dakota and played for the Fighting Hawks. Within your first season, you already had a starting spot at a wide receiver. How is it going from high school ball to immediately going into a starting position at a D1 school?
It was crazy because high school I led the state in receiving yards, and I was kind of dominating. Like I wasn't really playing against people who were probably at my caliber. But then right when I got to college, I'm playing against the best of the best. So it was kind of it was kind of a shock for me, and I definitely had to step up my game and mature a lot, and it forced me to do that. So it was kind of a crazy transition, but I think I did it, fairly well, and had a really good fall camp that year. Got my red shirt pulled, and then ended up playing in every game.
Mm. So you immediately made an impact as soon as you started playing for him. You led your team in receptions with 39 in your very first year there, and your role just continued to expand each year in your college career. You had the biggest year as a senior with 48 receptions, 684 yards, and 7 total touchdowns. How did you handle the load of being the lead wide receiver at such a big caliber?
I mean, it was something that was kind of natural for me. Growing up, I'd always been one of the better athletes, if not the best athlete on my team. So in football and basketball, I was very used to, handling that load and kind of being the guy that people look to. So when I got in that position in college, it was kind of something similar where we had a really good receiving core. So we had a bunch of guys that could all make plays, and whoever the ball ended up going to, that was the guy who was going to make a play that one. So I didn't really put any more pressure on myself than needed be, and I had a lot of faith in my teammates and coaches. So it was pretty easy to kind of step into that role.
So looking a little more into the future, how do you hope that the amount that you contribute to your team translates into the NFL?
I mean, I hope that I just get an opportunity in the NFL, and I think that's something that is very transferable from any sport to any level. That it's kind of like a characteristic where some guys are kind of built for that, and some guys maybe don't have it in them. So I definitely think I have it in me, and I hope some NFL teams can recognize that.
So right after college, the pandemic hit, knocking everybody off their feet. So your original pro day was canceled. Most gyms and training facilities shut down, and all you had were a couple weights, some bands, in your girlfriend's basement. So how did you manage to take everything that was thrown at you and what you had and just make it into something productive?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was like 2 weeks before my pro day in March, almost a year ago today, a year and a couple weeks. And COVID canceled everything, shut down all the facilities. And I was up in Minnesota, so there's still snow on the ground,
Mhm.
and there wasn't really options to work out. So I actually drove because my girlfriend lived in New Mexico. So I drove from Minnesota to New Mexico like a week after that. It's like an 18 and a half hour drive, just straight shot it. And I was in New Mexico where it was quite a bit warmer, found a quarterback to throw to me there and, stayed productive. But it's kind of something that if you have that drive, and I really had that drive, I want to play football, I want to play professional football. So it was something that was really easy for me because I knew what I wanted to do. It's just kind of finding the motivation to do it. And I think throughout the past year, I've done a great job of that, and just surrounding myself with others who want to see me succeed and want to help me succeed, which has been really key for me.
Hmm. And I read a little bit about the quarterback that you played with. It was actually just a high school quarterback that you
Mhm.
found on a field. You're like, hey, you want to throw to me? So how was he like?
Aiden, yeah, his name's Aiden Nair. He plays for La Cueva High School in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So he's actually a senior this year, and he's kind of looking to play. I think he might have some like JUCO NAIA offers, some
Hmm.
D3 roster spots. But I mean, I saw him throwing there, and there weren't a lot of like guys playing football on the fields. There's like a lot of people just kind of working out. I'm not sure, if they're scared about COVID or whatever, but he was one of the only guys there, and he had a really good arm. Obviously, he was a high school quarterback, so it was like a little bit different than what I'd been throwing with before. But we kind of got together and we threw like every single day for pretty much a month and a half straight. And then actually, when I went back to New Mexico a couple months ago, I hit him up again and we threw like every single day. So he's a really good guy. And obviously, I was extremely lucky to find him, just to have someone keep me in shape and let me keep getting better.
Yeah, I saw like it was like I had to really adjust to Travis. Like I was throwing way under. I was used to throwing to people that are like 5'10", and the 6'3" guy comes in. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay.
yeah. We threw with a couple of his like high school receivers too. And obviously it's like nothing against them. It's just once you kind of get in those college years, you
Hmm.
develop a lot and you kind of learn how to actually, play as a high level wide receiver. So that's what he kind of said, that it took him a little bit to adjust, but he definitely did, and he did a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking at some of your pro day, like just your measurements, not even like the cone drills. 6'3" and a half, 213. Just like on paper, you hear that and it's like, holy cow, this guy's an absolute monster. Like this kid's gonna be a freak. So how much of what you have is like, obviously it's like God's gift to you, like, right? You have all these physical tools, and then how much of it is you putting the work in as well on top of that?
Yeah, I think so much of it is me putting in the work. Obviously, I've been blessed with some, physical abilities. I'm a pretty big guy, but a lot of this is come through my work. Obviously, I have a brother who's like very similar size to me. He was a tennis player. He put in a ton of work, and he's a great tennis player. My sister was a great golfer, put in all that work. And I mean, I definitely give credit to my parents for making me what I was, but so much of that, and they'll even tell, they'll say anything. I've always just kind of had that work ethic. I've always wanted to get better. I've always been improving on myself. So, in the weight room, on the football field, on the basketball court, whatever I was doing, always striving to be the best I could be. So I think a lot of that is just what I've kind of made myself into.
Mm.
And another thing is, how would you describe your play style as a receiver? Would it be like more physical, aggressive, or kind of like laid back, more like a route running heavy? Like, what would your play style be?
I would definitely say I'm a very physical receiver. Just like in my routes, I think I'm a pretty good route runner. And like you said, I'm a pretty big guy, so I don't really have that blazing speed. I can still move really well, but I'm kind of just like a smooth route runner. So getting in and out of routes, I got to use my body, got to use my hands, kind of push off of people. Give it's kind of a trade that big receivers learn how to do. So I mean, I have really great hands, so I'd kind of say I'm like a possession receiver in that type, where I'm gonna catch everything that's thrown to me and make a play after that.
Speaking of
And
possession receiver, you posted your pro day stats a couple day like a day or two ago on Twitter. and amazing. First off, like you have some amazing numbers on there,
Yeah,
and you
very
also put
impressive.
a comparison to Cooper Cup, which after seeing you play in the FCF, there's a lot of resemblance to. And I actually did a little bit of looking into it. I looked at last year's draft, the 2020 draft, and I actually found that T. Higgins also had a lot of similar traits to you, like a lot of similar numbers. So how do you feel about the comparison to Cooper Cup and even T. Higgins? And aside from the stats, how do you feel similar or different from those two comparisons?
Yeah, Cooper Cup, actually, we played in the same conference in college. We were both in the Big Sky. So he's kind of someone that I actually never played him. We played his team after he was gone, but he was someone that I watched a lot of film on and that we would watch because, we played the same teams that they played. So watching him kind of run routes like how he did, I was very impressed. And it's kind of someone that I feel like I kind of watched, how he uses his body because he's not the most like explosive, fast guy, but incredible receiver, and he does everything he can with what he has. So I just kind of wanted to put that in perspective because a lot of times if I just tweet my numbers, like people will say, oh, he only like jumped to 31-inch vertical, which I was not happy with my jump. So like my broad jump, I thought it was going to be closer to 10. Vertical, I thought it was going to be mid 30s. I was like extremely nervous. That was the first thing we did. So I'll give credits to my nervousness on those, but just like putting it in perspective and seeing how successful NFL receivers did in their pro day, it's kind of not all about the numbers. And that's why I want people to realize that I posted pretty solid numbers, but at the end of the day, it still comes down to who's going to be a good football player, and that's kind of all it is. I don't really like how much weight is put on like the 40-yard dash because going into it, I knew I had to run a solid 40 because if I ran a bad 40, no one would like even give me a look. So I'm hoping with that 4.61 that I posted that it'll give me a little chance and people can realize that I'm a really good receiver, have a lot of skills, and definitely have a lot of room to develop.
Definitely,
Yeah,
because
man.
you
Four
have a lot
six.
of great in
Oh,
the receivers in the NFL that don't have the speed, but they have everything else, and that's exactly what you showed. Like Adam Thielen and Cooper Cup, they have great skills that you don't really need a lot of speed for, and will help win very crucial games.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that.
So, out of all of the stats, which one do you think was the most important to you to really prove to people with your type of play style?
In the pro day, you're saying?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would definitely 100% say the 40. And that's like kind of just something as a receiver, you can't have a slow 40. And even like a 4.6 for my size, I was happy with it. Obviously, if it was a little bit faster, that'd be ideal, and just kind of make me look even better. But I mean, I talked to like a couple scouts before that, and I was kind of like, realistically, like, what numbers do I need to be focused on? And he's like, for you, the biggest thing is always going to be the 40-yard dash, and that's kind of going to be what's either going to give you a shot or what's going to hurt you. So that was definitely the biggest thing for me.
Mhm.
No, I was gonna just add on. You mentioned Adam Thielen, and you're from Minnesota, so that kid came up. I'm pretty sure he went to the University of Minnesota. Am I correct on that?
University of Minnesota Mankato, yeah, so a
Okay.
D2 school in Minnesota.
Yeah, and then he ends up going to the Vikings, and he's like the hometown hero. Everyone loves him. So, have you followed his career at all?
Yeah, actually, we work out at like the same gym in Woodbury, Minnesota.
No
So
kidding.
yeah, so I actually like last summer I got to run routes with him, throughout the summer, and I see him when I go up there and work out. I see him, every day here and there. So I talk to him a little bit, kind of say what's up. So it's not like we're like super close friends, but he
Right.
definitely knows who I am, and we've worked out together a couple times. So it's definitely something really cool. And I'm a big Vikings fan, so being able to watch how he's had success as a small school guy and kind of gives me some motivation to do the same.
Yeah, do
What
you
were
ever
some?
like here, let me ask something real quick. Do you ever like pick his brain and ask him for any
That's
like
fine.
advice that you need as someone who's been successful at the next level?
Yeah, and definitely when we're like on the field together, watching him run routes and hearing him describe why he runs routes a certain way, he kind of gives you like in a game, this is what a defender is going to be looking at, just like in terms of like certain cuts. Like if I'm like speed cutting one, or if I'm like kind of breaking down a little bit just for like timing purposes. So just his experience of actually playing in the NFL and playing in so many NFL games is like pretty crazy. So I mean, I've heard him tell his story, over and over, and they always bring it up whenever he makes a couple plays in the NFL. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something that's pretty well known, but it's definitely cool to like be able to work out with him and to learn from him.
Mm. Definitely, that's exactly what I was going to say. Because from someone that's had so much success from there, coming from a D2 school, there's definitely a lot of advice to get from a player like that.
Yeah.
After the pandemic, well, not after the pandemic, but once it died down a little bit, the FCF opened up, and you got a big opportunity to join. You became a franchise tagged player by the Zappers, and you did great in the league. By the way, absolutely great job in it. So, what do you hope your time in the FCF and what you showed will prove and show different scouts and NFL coaches what you're able with what your abilities are?
Yeah. So the FCF is obviously a different type of football. It's a 50-yard field, 7-on-7. So like at the end of the day, if scouts are kind of like, oh, we're not really gonna look into that film. I haven't really heard anyone say that, but if they're like, we're not gonna like look at that, that's not really the same football that we play. You can still watch me and see that I have the skills to make plays. I have great hands. I'm catching the ball and coming down with a lot of catches that I think were fairly impressive. So I think that's something that if scouts are watching, they can kind of see that athletic ability and that ability to make plays. And that's kind of something that I hope that scouts are taking a look at and will take into consideration.
Yeah, because the league is definitely still good for wide receivers because no matter what, you're still being covered by someone. It's not like it's still one-on-one most of the time. So it's a good way to see exactly how people can play on man to man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And still getting 5 touchdowns in, what was it, 5-6 games? It's
5 games,
big,
yeah.
still.
Yeah.
So with the 2021 draft approaching, and your pro day numbers definitely show that you have what it takes. What is the mindset that you have going into the draft?
I mean, I don't expect to get drafted, and I think that's just being realistic with myself, but just hoping to get an opportunity. I'm hoping that some scouts reach out to me, reach out to my agent, and kind of show some interest, get an invite to a camp somewhere. And I think immediately after the draft is when they start calling and signing the like undrafted free agents.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of the boat that I'm in right now, and I'm just waiting to hear. I think I'm gonna start sending out some like film and numbers myself just to reach out to as many people as possible and give myself the best chance to get on the field and show what I can do.
Yeah, we'll definitely be rooting for you. We're gonna be spreading your name all over the place, definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely,
and just to add, Doug Baldwin went undrafted, and he's one of my favorite receivers I've ever watched. So, man, ain't nothing wrong. If you don't get drafted, you could still make your mark on the league for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, and I think that's been shown throughout the NFL that a lot of the best players are guys who weren't really expected to make it, and it's kind of just like getting to that next level and keep improving on yourself. I'm 22 years old, so it's not like I've been out of college for a bunch of years. I'm really young. My best football's ahead of me, and I think that's something that really works into my favor. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
You always have those ESPN posts that show all like the top wide receivers with 2-star ratings, and like when it really comes to that, it doesn't really matter what you're rated. It really matters what you can do on the field and what can show people that you can do, and that's what really matters most.
Yeah, definitely. And if I end up making it, I don't even think I had a star coming out of high school. So I'm trying to look because I saw those too. And I was looking. I was like, I wonder what like star rating I was. And I like looked.
I think you actually had 2 stars.
I might be a 0-star player.
I think you actually had a couple stars in there.
Oh, did I?
So yeah, I think I found like a 2-star rating up there.
Okay, that might be like the minimum. A lot of people have, though, because only had one offer, but did the most with it.
Yeah. So and of course, this is an if. We don't know what's going to happen. If you aren't drafted in like the next couple of years, what do you see yourself doing afterwards?
Yeah, so obviously football has been my priority and it's kind of my main focus, but if football isn't the path that's kind of in the cards for me, I definitely see myself sticking around football and kind of I don't know if whether it be coaching or doing some sort of like personal training. I've always wanted to own my own and operate my own gym,
Hmm.
work with athletes, and teach young receivers just from all the experiences that I have and kind of help people in that way. So I think that's something that I've been really passionate about. So I think even if it's not playing football, I'll somehow still surround myself with the game.
Now, of course, football isn't your only sport. Are you still around basketball? Do you still like go to like gyms and play like 5-on-5s every now and then?
Yeah, well, I haven't really been playing 5-on-5 lately, just because there's a lot of like
Well,
restrictions on COVID. But I'm probably gonna go shoot some hoops outside here in a bit. It's pretty nice out, so I definitely play a lot of basketball. I actually played tennis in high school too.
hmm.
So my girlfriend's a D1 tennis player. I like to go hit the ball around with her quite a bit. So I definitely stay active outside of football.
Awesome. So before we go, I have some like quick rapid fire questions that I like to ask people. So out of everybody that you've played with throughout your career, who was one of your favorite players to play with, and or what was one player that really had the biggest impact on you?
I'd probably say another receiver at North Dakota, Noah Wanzek. We lived together for 2 years, played wide receiver together for 4 years, and he's always a kind of lunch pail kind of guy. He's gonna go in, he's not gonna make a big deal out of it, but he's gonna work his butt off every day, and I really respected that about him.
Hmm. I saw on your link tree on Instagram, you also like to stream on Twitch. So
Yeah,
what's one of your favorite games to stream on there?
Call of Duty is definitely my go-to game. I don't have my Xbox with me right now, so I've only had a couple streams. I kind of want to get it going, but like lately I've been like so focused on that pro day, and I didn't really want to have any distractions. So haven't been playing many video games in the past week or two, but I'll probably get back into that. So definitely Call of Duty.
Yeah, we'll share our tags with you. We'll hang out sometime.
we all have to go to the gym to better ourselves and stuff like that when it comes to, being athletic and just you make yourself better in the gym. That's what happens. It all translates to the field. What is the one artist or song that's your go-to to just hype you up, that just fires you up and gets, the juices flowing?
Man, I'd say I really like listening to like throwback Kanye. Lately, I've been on like a Jack Harlow kind of vibe. I've been listening to
All
like
right.
Tyler Hero by Jack Harlow. That's been one that I kind of find on my playlist quite a bit. So, and then Roddy Ricch too. I've like that what was it? Please forgive me for being antisocial. That whole
Yeah,
album,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
like that whole album goes kind of hard. So I've been
Yeah.
listening to that quite a bit when I work out.
I like that, man. I like to hear that.
Hmm. So a question that I like to ask everybody. We all have a cheat day every now and then. What is your go-to cheat day food?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I like a lot of stuff. It's kind of just like whatever's present. I'm like a big cereal guy, so maybe it'll be a couple extra bowls of cereal, but any desserts really. I really like peanut butter, so Reese's peanut butter cups are something that
Mhm.
I definitely can't keep too much of in the house because I'll eat it. But when I do and I have my cheat day, I'll slide those in there too.
What would you say, going back to the weight room, what would you say is the most important thing for a receiver? Is it putting up the most weight, or is it repping out like little weight? Like what translates better to the field?
Yeah, that's something that's kind of been like in or in college. I feel like we lifted like so much where I was extremely strong, but I wasn't really explosive. So that's something that I've been working on for the last year, where it's like doing a lot more like functional training. And I definitely would not say lifting the most weight is something that's going to make you better. Obviously, it's not going to hurt you, but at the end of the day, I think just like training to be explosive, a lot of like plyometric stuff has been what's really worked for me. And I think like don't really pay attention to how much weight you're doing, but kind of like what you're doing with that weight. Because if you're gonna put on 275 on squat and you're barely gonna move it, why wouldn't you just put on 185 and like move that fast and get that like explosiveness, get that range of motion? It's kind of something that I've changed my mindset to from college to now, and that's really helped me.
Yeah, I feel like everyone going into like the end of high school, you know, when you're like the man in the school and it's like, man, I gotta put, you know, you got it up. You're like, man, I gotta put up all these weights. All these
Yeah.
freshmen are looking at me, all these underclassmen, like I gotta show them what's up. But I
Yeah.
feel like once you get to college, like especially because I play baseball, so it's like, especially once you get to like the upper class, you kind of realize like, man, that stuff doesn't really matter. I'm trying to just become better.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember in high school putting like 315 on the bar and like quarter squatting it and just like no
Yeah.
depth, just no range of motion, and just like looking. If I could have gone back to like my high school weight room and watched myself, I would have been so mad at what I was doing.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You do the little half squat, and then
Yeah.
the whole team hypes you up. You got
Yeah.
about 8 people around you, just all cheering you, just for getting that little
Exactly.
like half an inch squat. I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
So finally, in a short paragraph, what is your final pitch to any NFL or CFL teams and the scouts and coaches that are watching?
My final pitch would be that I'm a young guy. I love football, have that passion, have that drive, work my butt off every day. I've had success in every level and every league I've played at. So, I mean, I don't know why anything would change from me going to the NFL. So, all I need is an opportunity, and I can't wait to prove myself.
Thank you, Travis, and
Yeah,
thank you for
awesome.
listening to the FGs and Threes podcast.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Have a good one.